Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jason Wehrli. Today we have episode 3 of the 1987 K30 Chevy Duramax Swap. Today we're going to go over the drivetrain, chassis, suspension, axles, everything like that. So stay tuned. All right, so last episode we talked about the power plant. We've got our mild LBZ LML engine build. We decided to change things up a little bit with this project. Instead of doing the typical Allison swap like we've done in the past and most common out there when doing the Duramax conversions, we decided to go with the good old ZF6 manual transmission that came in the early 01 to 06 model Duramaxes. You don't see a lot of guys out there running manual transmissions anymore. The body that we bought actually originally had a manual transmission in it. So we thought it'd be cool to do something a little bit different and do a manual swap. So we've got a nice reman ZF6 transmission with a little bit of an upgraded dual disc aftermarket clutch. Tied to the back of the ZF6, we've got the original equipment from the square body 205 transfer case. Using the advanced adapters conversion, we're able to adapt that right to the back of the ZF6 trans and make all that stuff work really well and still incorporate the four-wheel drive. Front and rear drive shafts, just had to do some slight modifications to those. The overall package of the power plant was a little bit longer than what was originally in the truck, so we shortened the rear shaft a little bit, got that rebuilt, balanced, and then a little bit longer on the front drive shaft. So we'll start with the front axle. As we mentioned, got the little bit longer front drive shaft here to work with that longer power plant assembly. And we've got our original equipment, Dana 60 front axle, which came standard in the K30 trucks in the 80s. Really tough axle. We actually used to use these a lot years ago in the pulling trucks, so there'll be no issue with this axle holding up to the Duramax power. Completely rebuilt, torn down to a bare housing, repowder coated. Did upgrade to 410 gears, give us a little bit taller ratio there, which will work well with that upgraded S300 turbocharger and the larger tires. We did do some upgrades in regards to steering over your factory components. We opted to use a crossover style steering. So instead of coming out of the gearbox with a short arm to the driver's side kingpin, we did a springless kingpin style billet cap from WFO with their crossover steer kit. So we come out of the gearbox, the upgraded, the Redhead aftermarket gearbox, and we use a crossover style drag link to our high steer arm. And then we've got our tie rod, like factory, connecting your left and right wheel together. With the crossover steering kit, had to get an aftermarket sway bar. Wanted to incorporate that sway bar since we're still street driving, doing a little towing with this truck. Didn't want to experience too much body roll, especially with the 4-inch lift kit. So I got an aftermarket sway bar mounted in there. We wanted to make sure that there was no chassis flex, nothing that's going to put extra stress on that engine block. And initially the chassis doesn't have any cross members from the very front all the way back to the transmission. So we added one hoop underneath the engine there, straddling the Duramax oil pan from frame to frame just to give some extra rigidity to the chassis and keep things well there. As we mentioned earlier, 4-inch lift kit. We stuck with the standard leaf spring style suspension. Didn't do 4-link on this setup. Stainless steel brake lines down to some new calipers, new lockout hubs, and a nice set of Bilstein 5100 series shocks to top it off. So that wraps up the whole front axle, and we'll move over to the rear axle and show you what we got going back here. Similar to the front, we stuck with the OE supplied 14-bolt rear axle that comes factory in the K30 trucks. Just like we did with the front and the chassis, we did a complete teardown on the rear axle, upgraded to 410 gears. Still running factory axle shafts. We'll see how long those last us. If we happen to hook to the pulling sled, those might not fare so well. But we did do the 410 ring and pinion upgrade, powder coat the axle housing, rebuilt the carrier, rebuilt everything, put a locker in it. Did the 5100 series Bilstein shocks in the rear, fresh leaf springs, bushings, and we actually got rid of your standard drum brake that comes factory on the rear of these trucks, and we did a disc brake upgrade, which is another nice kit that WFO offers. So we got 4-wheel disc brake on this truck now. Nice stainless steel brake lines, and we were able to get a special caliper on there so we can incorporate a parking brake since we're running a manual transmission. See, we've got some brackets here for our traction bars. We'll be throwing a set of traction bars on this truck, just like we do all of our performance rigs. You'll see a little bit of our exhaust system here. We've got just recently mocked up in the fab shop when it was over there getting the turbo kit built. Ryan spent some time and got our exhaust system dialed in. We got some custom hangers. And that wraps up what we've done to the drive line. A lot of that work was done, like we mentioned, 6-7 years ago when we started the project, and it got fully assembled and was a rolling chassis, and just recently set the body back down on it and started getting the project back moving and back into action. A couple other things we'll touch on while we're down here, a few other details we mentioned in the previous video. Fuel system upgrades, running the Exergy high pressure fuel system as far as injectors and CP3 pump goes. And we've got a standard fast titanium 150 lift pump mounted on the inside of the frame rail here with one of our off-the-shelf LML fast brackets mounted right on the inside of the frame rail. And we mounted a GNR diesel billet aluminum sump on the bottom of a new OEM style fuel tank. The truck did come with a dual tank option. We're getting it put together right now, which is a single tank, and later on we might add that second tank for a little extra capacity. But real factory, really nice clean looking factory style setup underneath here. Nothing too crazy, just good basic stuff that works and has been proven over time. So we're excited to get this thing fired up. Next video, stay tuned. Thanks a lot for following along.